My golden child brother ruined my childhood, then framed and sued me after I married because he liked my wife. Hi Reddit, I need some guidance on a complex position I'm in, therefore I'm using a throwaway account. I just want this out there, so please pardon any errors. I'm a 43-year-old man who is the youngest of 2 siblings. To give you the whole picture, I'll attempt to give a chronological account. The golden kid in our family has always been my 45-year-old brother, Michael. He could do no wrong in my parents' eyes as a child. For instance, they encouraged him and helped him get better when he received poor grades, but even though I received respectable grades, I was disappointed. For graduating from high school, I got $300 and a pat on the back, while he got a new automobile and a huge celebration. Although we usually did our own thing, Michael wasn't a bad brother. I felt the desire to go out and experience life on my own, but I didn't really protest. I completed my MBA in 7 years while attending a university in a different city. I got a job back in our hometown once I graduated. With the exception of holidays and birthdays, I didn't spend much time with my family throughout this time. My brother barely made it through high school because he wasn't the best student. After he left college, my parents assisted him in opening a modest hardware store. Despite my happiness for him, I kept my attention on myself. I began dating Emily, who was 20 at the time, around this period. We both came from the same city and met in college. After returning home, we cohabitated, got jobs, and concentrated on starting a family. I presented Emily to my family over the 2008 holidays. I felt more love than I have in years since they were unexpectedly kind and open. But I didn't give it much attention when I saw how much Michael was staring at her during the event. He soon began coming to my flat more often, first once every 4 months and then nearly every day. Since he visited in the evenings when Emily and I were attempting to unwind after work, it became bothersome. Eventually, I had to establish limits, which resulted in a heated argument with my parents. Michael expressed regret and made his trips more manageable by limiting them to weekends once every 2 months. I proposed to Emily in 2011, and we told Emily's family that we were engaged. Michael simply shook my hand and left the little celebration I had planned, but my parents were delighted. After that, he vanished for a few weeks. When we were married in 2013, Michael brought a guest, Laura, to the wedding. 11 months later, in 2014, they were married. I was having a happy marriage. In 2015, Olivia, our first daughter, was born, and in 2017, Chloe, our second. Laura messaged me in 2016 to let me know that Michael's obsession with Emily was the main cause of their breakup. I told her I was sorry and wished her luck. In our conversation, I also questioned Emily about her relationships with Laura. She informed me that from the beginning, Laura had been a little aloof and cold with her. In front of my family, I made the decision to confront my brother. I questioned him about why his passion with my wife was ruining his life. The inquiry caught him off guard, and he denied everything. Following a heated fight, I told Michael that he was no longer welcome in my home. Emily and my dad spoke with me and reassured me that Michael was still family regardless of everything. I made the decision to be friendly for everyone's benefit. We continued living our lives as it appeared that Michael was sincerely trying to improve himself. It was July 25th, and I can still clearly recall the day in 2018. While my wife took our children to see their grandparents, I was running a number of errands. My father called me after lunch and asked me to come over to their place. He sounded irate, and I could feel the tension when I got there. There were some members of my extended family there as well as my parents, who were attempting to comfort my wife, who was crying. They accused me of assaulting a girl at a party weeks prior and sent her threatening texts instructing her not to report it, which caught me off guard when I inquired about what had transpired. I had known Amanda, the girl in question, back in high school. I occasionally hung out with a wider group of friends, including her. Amanda claimed that I had attacked her after following her to her car following a club party. Along with her allegation, she sent screenshots of an alleged chat with my wife as proof. I was startled and perplexed. My parents told me they never wanted to see me again after my father gave me a heavy slap across the face. Emily was enraged and said we were finished. No one paid attention to my attempts to defend myself and show that I had done nothing of the like. I was told that Emily and the children would not come back to me, and I was essentially thrown out of the house. In addition, my father promised to come to my flat and get their possessions. I appealed with them to change their minds when my father visited the residence. Ignoring me, he packed some bags and warned me not to get in touch with them ever again. In addition, he threatened to turn me over to the police himself if I did. By the evening, Michael had posted Amanda's narrative and the screenshots to our WhatsApp group for our extended family. I was unanimously expelled from the organization shortly after. Friends from my group called me over the course of the following few days to express their displeasure and advise me not to get in touch with them ever again. I was a complete disaster at this time. I was unable to work, eat, or sleep. My supervisor brought me in for a talk after hearing the rumors. He told me to leave the company to preserve my record, even though he couldn't do anything about the rumors without the police becoming involved. He threatened to fire me without severance and with a damaged record if the police were involved. A few days later, I reluctantly accepted his recommendation and resigned. I was still living in agony in the middle of August when I got 2 court documents, Emily's divorce papers, and a letter of disownment from my family. When I went to my parents' house in my drunken and desperate state, Michael confronted me. I was assailed by him, who called me a disgrace to the family and said that my disownment was a wonderful thing. I could hardly stand and had blood running down my face by the time he was finished. Emily and my dad looked on from a distance but took no action. I eventually sat there in tears, realizing that I had lost everyone and all I knew. I remained cooped up in my flat while the divorce was being processed. The divorce proceeded as amicably as possible given the situation. I didn't have to pay child support or alimony because I was unemployed and my ex-parents said they would take care of the kids. Officially, I was divorced by January 2019. It was really difficult for me to try to put my life back together. I pondered confronting Amanda during this period, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it may make things worse. Even without sufficient proof, a single phone call may land me in jail for 5 to 6 years due to rules in my nation that prioritize women. I had a serious injury in February 2019 and had to recuperate for roughly 5 weeks. Emily was still my emergency number when the medical staff called. No one came to see how I was doing, and she hung up. I had to get back on my feet, if only to keep a roof over my head, after realizing that I had wasted a large amount of my funds. I sold all of my furniture, settled my outstanding rent, and made the decision to start over in a new city after realizing I couldn't reconstruct my life in the same location. I started looking for a job after moving 2 hours away, but I was unsuccessful. I drank too much throughout this time, and I had constant thoughts of taking my own life. For months I grew accustomed to waking up from dreams in a cold sweat. I suddenly ran across David, a former college classmate, 4 months later. Back then, David was the quiet boy who rarely spoke to others. Seeing him after all these years was unexpected. He called my name after spotting me in a crowd. After exchanging greetings, we briefly discussed our lives. I informed him that I was seeking employment in the city. David stated that he had recently resigned from his position and intended to launch his own management consulting business. Later that day, he asked me out for a drink and, after we talked about our careers, he gave me a job offer. He claimed that he required some knowledgeable individuals. I nodded, believing that in order to keep my thoughts busy, I needed to immerse myself in my task. But before making a commitment, I told him I wanted to meet with his staff and talk more about it. David introduced me to another team member, Mark, 2 days later. He clarified that going forward, it will just be the 3 of us. I shook hands with Mark and explained that I had something to impart before we could continue. I revealed everything. My divorce, my disownment, the allegations, and how I had lost everything. I was crying as I described what had happened. David and Mark sympathized with me and told me there wouldn't be any problems as long as I didn't have any criminal history. I clarified that I had never been visited or charged by the police. David stated he would have a thorough background check done just to be sure. I agreed and fully grasped his point of view. I was living in a dilapidated rental at the time in order to save money. In case things didn't work out, I waited patiently for 2 weeks while still looking for work elsewhere. David called me 2 weeks later, and we got together that day. He welcomed me to the team and assured me that there were no accusations against me. Following that, I pushed myself into my work and, at Derek's suggestion, began going to therapy sessions. In addition, I joined a gym and used the punching bag to release a lot of my frustrations, increasing my weight from an average of 77 kilograms to over 105 kilograms. Since Derek was about Michael's age, we became gym pals, and I began to regard him as an older brother. I had regained a great deal of control over my life by the end of 2019. As the consultancy business flourished, revenue began to flow in. I started to recover, at least somewhat, after renting a lovely apartment in a respectable area. I understood that in order to truly move on, I had to take action. With his and his parents' approval, I went to court and formally changed my last name to Derek's. They welcomed me into many of their family events since they thought I was a wonderful guy. In an attempt to show my appreciation for their generosity and encouragement, I even acted as Derek's best man at his wedding. I made another attempt at dating, but it was unsuccessful because of my unresolved emotional issues, until I met Kim in 2020. Kim, 29, has half Italian and half Korean ancestry. At a coffee shop where I frequently got coffee and occasionally stopped to sit, I first noticed her. Derek once saw her staring at me and urged me to ask her out, even though at first we simply spoke for orders. She worked behind the counter. Later that day, after some hesitation, I asked her for drinks. She said she wanted to see me again after our wonderful evening. But I thought it would end like the dates I've had before, when I informed them about my background and they left. When someone left after hearing my story, I never held them responsible. I made the decision to share my background with Kim during our lunch date on our second date. Before I proceeded, I wanted her to be fully informed. I talked about the charges, the disavowal, and my difficulties letting go. Although she was caught off guard, she listened to me as I told her that I would never consider harming somebody in that way. Before choosing to keep dating me, I advised her to understand what she was getting into. Kim contacted a few days later and requested a meeting. She told me she trusted me and wanted to try our connection when we first met at the coffee shop where she worked. I couldn't think someone could welcome me in spite of everything, so I was doubtful and even started crying. We took our relationship seriously and found great pleasure in each other's presence. I felt like I was finally getting well for the first time. I even traveled to Europe with Kim for my first vacation in years, and it was incredible. We maintained continuous phone and FaceTime communication during the 2021 epidemic. Kim asked if she could live with me when things started to settle down in the second half of the year. I concurred because she was having trouble finding employment when her position at the coffee business terminated. I recommended that Kim look into launching a food business because she was an amazing chef. With her parents' help, Kim was able to establish a cloud kitchen by the middle of 2022 and start delivering food to the surrounding areas. Our lives were going well together. Even though I was still dealing with some mental problems, I no longer had suicide ideas. But sometimes the dreams persisted. Kim declared her pregnancy in February 2024. I experienced a wide range of feelings, including grief for the family I had lost, dread of beginning over, and immense delight. Emotionally, I was all over the place. After Kim reassured me, we eventually dozed off together. Kim was ecstatic when I proposed to her shortly after. My life seemed to be finally heading in the direction of stability and serenity. Preparations were underway as we decided on a mid-June wedding date. I genuinely thought that things were finally improving. I got a call at the end of May from an unidentified number. Someone was crying when I responded. "Hello, this is Amanda," she said. I recognized her voice right away and hung up in a fit of rage. My companion, Kim, saw my look and approached me with worry. I struggled to contain my anger and tears as I described who it was. Kim picked up the phone and put it on speaker when it called again. The man who answered the phone identified himself as Amanda's fiancé. Amanda wanted to be honest about what had happened in the past, he explained. With tears in her eyes, Amanda called and apologized repeatedly. I was too emotional to reply, so Kim spoke most of the time. "They will call back later," she told Amanda's fiancé. Kim called Derek to come over as soon as the call was over. Derek calmly listened to Kim's explanation of the circumstances. He hugged me and suggested that we set up a meeting at a lawyer's office so that Amanda's confession could be recorded in case it was ever needed. After I called my lawyer and told him everything, he set up a meeting at his office. 3 days after I informed Amanda over the phone, we met at the attorney's office. Amanda appeared completely defeated, and the only person beside her was her fiancé. My lawyer mediated the encounter, which was captured on camera. Kim supported me by sitting next to me. Amanda started going into great detail about what had transpired. The main point is this: my brother Michael and Amanda were having an affair in secret in 2016. The whole scheme to frame me was planned by Michael. He purchased a new phone, took my profile photo from WhatsApp, and used it to fabricate screenshots of my chats with Amanda. Amanda loved him and would do anything for him, so she agreed to the plan. I wavered between tears and fury as Amanda told me all about it. I genuinely believe that I may have faced assault charges if Kim hadn't been present. Even though my lawyer tried to be kind, Kim, who was angry and probably made worse by her pregnancy, gave Amanda a vicious verbal abuse. I fought back tears and rage as I questioned them why they were coming forward to tell me this. Kim also turned to Amanda's fiancé and warned him, "If you still marry this human garbage, then you deserve whatever happens." Mark, Amanda's fiancé, clarified that while they were intoxicated a few weeks prior, Amanda blurted out that she had assisted an ex in ruining a marriage. She eventually came clean after he pressed and questioned her about it repeatedly. If Amanda desired harmony in her life, Mark stressed that she had take responsibility for her faults. After assisting Michael, Amanda explained, he grew aloof and chilly toward her and ended their relationship 6 months later. She had spent a lot of time in therapy trying to deal with her guilt, but she was too afraid to come clean even though she felt awful. My lawyer intervened after everything was explained and recommended a 20-minute respite before proceeding. My lawyer went over my alternatives while Amanda and Mark went out. He clarified that I had sufficient proof to file defamation lawsuits against Michael and Amanda. Even though I was furious, I made the decision that this would not interfere with my impending wedding. In order to prevent causing trouble with my ex-family, I informed my lawyer that I would handle this after the wedding and told Amanda not to notify anybody else. Kim gave me a hug after the meeting and told me that she trusted her gut and that she felt relieved. I felt the same way she did. David and Derek were both my best men at our tiny wedding, and we then traveled throughout Europe for 3 weeks on our honeymoon. We both had an incredible time. During the honeymoon, I was able to enjoy myself, but the nightmares increased in frequency. Kim was there for me no matter what. I talked to my therapist about these emotions, and she said that in order to get closure, I would eventually have to face my former family. After giving it some thought, I made the decision to get in touch with Amanda once more in July. I offered her a means of avoiding financial catastrophe, but I also informed her that I intended to pursue legal action in light of her comments. I told her to go to Emily's office by herself and tell Emily what she had told us at the lawyer's office. During the talk, Amanda broke down in tears and disclosed that Mark had abandoned her. Although I hoped I could feel sorry for her, I informed her that I couldn't. I also mentioned that my brother was the target of karma, which had finally come up with her. It was a few days later that Emily texted me. I had always emailed her birthday greetings and wishes on our daughter's birthdays and holidays, even though I was blocked. I hadn't heard from her in 8 years until this communication. She wanted to speak with me. I told her I would give her a call in a few hours because I didn't want to have this chat by myself. With Kim by my side, I went home and made the call. I could hear Emily crying violently as soon as she picked up the phone. Once she had calmed down, she apologized and said how awful she felt. I was able to keep my cool and tell her how much it stung to know that she didn't think highly of me because she had fallen so readily into Michael's trap. I inquired about my girls with Emily. They were doing great, she remarked. She said it was 2 days ago when I inquired when she had met Amanda. She acknowledged that it took her a long time to realize how swiftly she had cut off contact with me and how mistaken she had been. She alerted my ex-parents to Amanda's revelation right away, and they were equally as shocked. They all wanted to get in touch with me, but Emily insisted on apologizing first. I informed her that her actions were really hurtful. What about the golden child, Michael? I asked her. He was expelled from the residence, she disclosed. That made me laugh. Emily then revealed even another shocking detail. Michael had been her support system at that period, and she had married him a year after our divorce was official. Everything suddenly made sense. It appeared that Michael had never really moved on from her. She also revealed to me that she and him had a daughter. Following these disclosures, I outlined my conditions. In order for Emily to comprehend the type of guy Michael was, I first advised her to contact my extended family and tell them about all he had done. Second, I made it clear that, while I intended to co-parent my 2 kids, I had no plans to make amends with her beyond what was required for our daughters. Third, I told her that I wanted to face my ex-parents face-to-face and that I would text her the time and date of our meeting. Knowing that Kim's pregnancy may have caused her emotions to be all over the place, I gave her a hug after our talk. Kim wept for us both, but I controlled my own feelings. We dozed off while holding each other. My phone was off when I woke up the following morning. I discovered a deluge of notifications after charging it, including hundreds of messages and more than 150 missed calls. Additionally, I was added back to the family group chat, where everyone was expressing regret. Messages from former friends also arrived throughout the course of the following few days, apologizing for making snap judgments. All I could say in response to the family group was that I was an outsider now and would stay that way because I had been disowned nearly a decade earlier. I informed them that my terms and timing, not theirs, would determine whether or not I forgave them. I quickly exited and asked not to be added back to the group. A few relatives attempted to criticize me, expressing their disappointment with my response. After being so eager to assume the worst, I shut them down by telling them they had no right to criticize me. I instructed them not to get in touch with me until I first contacted them. After a few weeks, I gave Emily a call and asked her to come over for the weekend so I could have a good look at my girls. As resolute and fierce as ever, Kim demanded to meet her stepdaughters as well. She was resolute despite our arguments, which usually involved my attempts to persuade her to take care of herself due to the pregnancy. After a while, I gave in. At a public park, we first met. Despite her somewhat unkempt appearance, Emily had tried to look professional for the meeting. I got to see Olivia and Chloe for the first time in 8 years. They were so much bigger now. Since I had been restricted from all social media and communication channels, my phone was the only place I had any recollection of them. Emily came to me in tears and attempted to give me a hug, but I stopped her by raising both of my hands. Afterward, I presented her to Kim as my spouse. In the park, she collapsed into a weeping mess. We sat down close by as Kim stepped up to console her. I sobbed while giving both of my girls firm embraces. Since they had always known Michael as their father, my daughters were naturally conflicted when they learned about me for the first time. But seeing me triggered a flood of feelings. There was a great deal of talking and crying. By nightfall, Emily and I were exchanging life updates. She disclosed that because he had provided for her at that period, she had married Michael a year after our divorce was official. For the first few years, he had looked after her and the girls, but everything finally broke apart. Michael was forced to close his landscaping firm completely due to the epidemic, and it never turned a profit. Even though his parents were now using their funds to make ends meet, Michael resisted starting anything new. Additionally, Emily informed me that she was divorcing Michael because she could no longer bear to see him. It had nothing to do with me, but I told her she could do whatever she wanted. I outlined my goals for the future. In order to aid in our collective healing, I first requested that Olivia and Chloe join me for family therapy sessions. It was time to make amends for the loss of their biological father. Second, I wanted to spend weekends with Kim and be involved in their life, but I told them that this would have to wait until after the baby was born, because I needed to spend the time I had left with the new baby. Finally, Emily said my parents wanted to get in touch with me. They were not my parents, I told her, and I had the letter they sent with the divorce papers as proof that they had disowned me. Nevertheless, Kim and Emily both urged me to meet them, claiming it could provide me some closure. I reluctantly consented and informed Emily that I would choose the time and location of the meeting. In order to spend more time with my girls, I requested Emily to spend the night in the city and made reservations for her at a hotel. We spent Sunday together the following day, taking in the sights of the city and having a good time. Olivia and Chloe both hugged me tightly before I left, and I told them I would see them the next week. I informed Emily that I would come to the girls' family therapy sessions, saving her the trouble of driving them. We had a successful initial introductory session, and my therapist recommended a counselor in their city. The therapist told me that Olivia and Chloe would eventually have to find out what my ex-brother Michael had done. I told her it would happen eventually, but I still consented. The therapist also recommended that I share my tale here and look for other viewpoints on my circumstances. To be honest, I might not have progressed this far if Derek hadn't pushed me. What should I do next? That is the question I have for you. Even though I call my ex-parents, I still harbor feelings and emotions for them that I intend to address eventually. I don't know how to interpret that or whether it makes sense. How do I handle Michael? Should I file a defamation lawsuit against him even though I doubt I'll ever want to see his face again? I'm worried that anything I do to him could have a detrimental effect on my ex's daughter, as I know he has one. I will do my best to answer any inquiries you may have. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.